All right, as you can see, there's the PlayStation 2, the Xbox, can't fit in the frames, of course, the GameCube. So yeah, as you can see, I'm gonna do a review on all 3D systems, basically the pros and cons, yeah, basically the weaknesses and strengths, and you guys know how we're gonna do. So anyway, let's get this over, let's get started. So let me start with a PS2, see how I got this. As you can see, I did not have a PS2. This is actually the PS2 I got from 2006. Yes, from 2000. This PS2 had for almost 20 years. This is the same one. This is a, well, you obviously can't see it. This is a 7012 model. Yes, you can't see it because the prescription got ripped out. Oh, you can see the warranty sticker still right there if you can see it. Of course, nobody cares because this PS2 they don't make, because Sony don't make these no more anyway. So yeah, so the PS2, yeah, this is my PS2. This is the one that doesn't work, even though, oh, yeah, the laser and all the other stuff getting replaced and refurbished. So yeah, this one finally gave out after almost 15 plus years. Yeah, this is the second one. The original one got replaced like a decade ago. So don't worry. So yeah, decade, and it's finally gave out. Yeah. All right, the Xbox. Now, I didn't have an Xbox back in the day because I had the PS2, obviously. But my first experience with the Xbox is with my cousin's house back in the day. When he got it around like 05, 06, I think it was. He had games like your basic sports titles, Madden, 2K, the wrestling games. Of course, he had a 360. That's how I got a 360 in 2009, but more on the 360 story later. So yeah, I did not grow up with the Xbox. I finally got one around like 2 years. Got my own. I started collecting games for it because I heard about the Xbox can play 360 games. So I'll explain that later on in the video. So yeah, and around 2022, save up my money. I got this for $90, was somewhat surprisingly. Because I remember about, it's like 2013 or 2014, you could buy these for $50, basically like a PlayStation 1 nowadays. And of course, the GameCube. No, this is not my original GameCube. This system actually belongs to my late sister's. This is my older sister's GameCube. Yeah, my late older sister's GameCube. This belongs to her. Of course, when she passed, I got this. Now it's in my hands. Of course, these are not her memory cards. These are my memory cards. So yeah, she got this back in late 02 or Christmas. Yeah, you can tell because look at this. And it still works to this day. The only problem is the clock battery is dead. So every time you start it up, it will tell you to reset the date and time. Same with the Xbox, by the way. He asks you that too. The clock capacitor needs to get replaced. That's probably why he's doing that. Of course, the PS2, surprisingly, the clock capacitors still work. And those are pretty cheap to find on Amazon and eBay if you want to place those, at least with the slim. I don't know about the fat model. Well, speaking of the fat model, if you want to buy a PS2, let me get this out the way. Here's the silver one. If you've seen this, you know this one by the way. If you want to caution, if you want to buy one, here's the back side of the PS2. Now, you can use our regular, here, shut up. I'll show you this real quick. For a PS2 fat and this model right here, if you want, just make sure, if it has not the little brick, you just pull it. All you gotta do is pull this back here. It will work just fine. See? See? Right there. But this one obviously does not. You need that little brick. All you gotta do, just plug this back in the PS2. Plug in the circle hard. So yeah. Yeah, just put it in. Yeah. External supply. You just hop this back in your window, back in your computer right now to see these again. So yeah, work with the same controllers, memory cards. We'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, obviously the Xbox is the same thing. This is the one I use for mine. This is the AC power supply I use for my Xbox right here. Yeah, by the way, I'm watching the 2008 Coke 0400, but that's irrelevant to this video. And of course, the GameCube one, which I will be saying this. Here's the GameCube one. Of course, just like the PlayStation one from the PS2, this is first party. Obviously, you see the Nintendo brand right there. Oh, by the way, if you're buying a GameCube online, like Amazon or eBay, please make sure you come with the power supplies, because these are hard to find. Because these are somewhat rare, well, at least the first party ones are rare. So make sure you have a power supply. Now, anyway, let's talk about the memory cards. Of course, the PS2, as I said in my PS1 review, it plays backwards compatible PS1 games. I'll get to the backwards compatibility at Impact later. But as you can see, PS2 memory card, both of these are first party, by the way, in case you're wondering. See? So yeah, as you guys know, yeah, I will say this, even though because the PS2 got a lot of games, if you combine with the PS1 backwards compatibility, because the first party, not the third party, I don't care about the third party memory cards, the first party memory cards, they don't hold a lot of data, especially the PS1 memory cards. So if you got, like me, you got like 20 or 30 PS1, PS2 games, you probably gonna need like 4 of these. Now, the Xbox, obviously, you don't need memory cards, because here, I'll show you, even though this does not make any sense. The controller obviously has memory card slots in the controller. I don't know why Microsoft did this, because let's be for real, you don't really need memory cards. The only reason why they do that, if you have a buddy that had an Xbox back in the day, which is weird, because let's be for real, most of your buddies either had a PS2 or a GameCube. But if he does have an Xbox, you can go over to his house and put the memory card in it and load your save files to his stuff. So that's basically what it's for. But we're not here to worry about that, because there's not time for that. Because we don't got time for that. Because we got stuff we need to do. Alright, sorry about that. I just gotta get that out the way. Now, the GameCube memory card, same as the PS2. If you got like a decent amount of GameCube games, like 20 or 30, like I said, you're gonna need more of these. Oh, by the way, give you a heads up. Animal Crossing. Because that game it's not really that big. Because that game needs its own memory card. So please make sure you have enough memory card space. Or just clean out the games in the day that you don't need. Boom. Because Animal Crossing needs its own memory card. Because it's weird. But I understand why it needs it. So yeah. Just a reminder, Animal Crossing, get a special memory card for it. Because he needs his own. Because it's so big. But anyways. Now let's get back to the backwards compatibility stuff. PS2, the Slim model, and most PS2 games, it's backwards compatible almost all, well, not all PS1 games, but most of them. All the Crash games work. Well, except for Bash or some of the PS2 models. Spyro games work. Need for Speed, the Final Fantasy games. The only game I know that's not working on all PS2 is Final Fantasy Anthology. I think I pronounced that game wrong. That's the only I'm aware it does not work on all PS2 systems. So if you want to play that on either the PS1 emulator or PlayStation 1 itself. Now the Xbox, obviously, it does not have backwards compatibility, because most of the Xbox games are compatible on the 360, the Xbox One, and of course the Xbox Series. Of course, the GameCube, as we all know, you can play them on the Wii. Well, most of them. Well, I meant the original launch model came out in 2006. The second version of the Wii does not play GameCube games or the Wii Mini. Just keep that in mind. Unless you play them on Dolphin. Just remember that. Of course, I forgot to mention, as we all know, the PS2, I said it's the PS1, which is basic CD player, because CD players were in the 2000s. Of course, reliability, the reason why the PS2 have out on reliability, probably especially on the fat models, because people use it as their own cheap primary DVD player. And of course, CD players, because this plays CDs too, just like the PS1 does. Cause that's why all the inside, the guts, and all that stuff start wear out on the inside, start working. At least for the PS2 model, it's the old PS2 models, not the slim models. Now the Xbox does play DVDs, but unlike the PS2, by the way, which I heard, it's not really that all perfect, but at least with the PS2, you just play with a PS2 controller, which I'll get to the controller side in a minute. But the Xbox, if you want to play, watch DVDs, you didn't buy a DVD kit, I think that runs around 10, well, if it comes all the stuff you need, couple of like $20, but that's not that bad. Now the GameCube, obviously, because of the small disc, they can't play GameCube games. What the hell? Of course they can play GameCube games. And they can't play movies because of obvious reasons. And of course, you could buy the Panasonic Cube. Well, sort of, because well, first of all, that's why, the Panasonic Cube only came out in Japan. Even if you find it in the United States, they're expensive and rare. I think they only play Japanese games unless you mod the system, but we're not going to worry about modding, because who cares about that? Oh, by the way, they just forgot about the GameCube. Obviously, you can't not play N64 and Super Nintendo SNES games on here, but if you take this apart, you can, of course, you can play. If you have the Game Boy player, you can play Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. If you take all this stuff apart, all this construction back here, you hook up the Game Boy player. Of course, beyond the winning, it's harder to find because well, the Game Boy player itself is not hard to find. It's the boot disc you need because the Game Boy player will not run without it. So just keep in mind if you buy that, bro. Just look for the boot disc. Have fun finding it. Now, of course, the controller. As we all know, PS2 controller. The Duke controller. Well, Duke. I said this is the DualShock 2 controller. It's basically the same as a PS1 controller, but the notable difference is these are analog buttons, and the PS1 is not. So meaning if you're playing games like Gran Turismo, you can press the X button down the way, or you can just hook to the triggers. So if you hit the X button, depending on how you press the button, you can accelerate all the way, right, or half the way. Of course, on the PS1, it's on or off. Same thing with the Xbox controller. This is the controller S, not the Duke controller, so you can tell. The only problem I have with it is the black and white buttons is on here, but they cannot put them somewhere, I guess. I don't know why. But anyway, same thing, nope. And all thing is, it's basically an improvement over the Duke controller. Obviously, the face buttons are not jammed in one place, and the logo is not going to blind you with the game. Mechanical buttons. And the D-pad, of course, the triggers. You usually, trust me, shooting games and racing games, you use the Duke controller for racing games like Midnight Club 3. And of course, how can I really talk about the GameCube controller? I will say, the only problem I have with it is the placement of the Z button. And of course, the third-party GameCube controllers are terrible. These will cost a little bit more because of the Nintendo brand. Of course, they're on the Wii U and Switch. And the Switch too. I'm guessing they will make one adapter for the Switch too. I'm pretty sure that's not be surprising. But anyway, third-party GameCube controller. Oh, speaking of this, I forgot to mention on the GameCube controller. This obviously this is the original model of the GameCube. This is the AV cables, and I believe this is where you put those rare and elusive GameCube component cables. Have fun finding those because A, they're rare. The reason why they're rare because they didn't come out in the States. And of course, they're not the same as the PS2 and Xbox component cables. You can find those pretty cheap, even knockoff ones like $10. Which one I got for my PS2. And of course, you use HDMI adapters, but why would you do that? I think the GameCube one's probably better with those was damn better than the PS2. But anyway, as we all know, this generation, because you can get the same game on all three systems, because you can get your. Because back in the day, if you want to play games like Super Mario World, you get a Super Nintendo. You want to play games like Sonic the Hedgehog, you get a Sega Genesis. Now with this generation, and even today, you can get games like Grand Theft Auto. What else? Yeah, Grand Theft Auto. You're basically sports games. You're basically racing games, basically. And you're basically movie license games, cartoon license games like SpongeBob. Yeah, you get those type of games. No, I'm not gonna nitpick and say, well, which system does better with what game, but of course you got your exclusives. For example, the PS2 had games like Gran Turismo 4, the Xbox had Halo, especially Halo 2, and of course, the GameCube had games like Mario Kart Double Dash. So like I said, all three of these systems have personality. It depends what game you're trying to play on. So yeah, the third-party games, let's be honest, it probably look worse on the GameCube, but games like Sonic Heroes, probably the best on here. And the Xbox, obviously. Let's get this out the way. The weakness and strengths. Obviously, the PS2 problem, all PS2s for that matter, is the reliability, especially with the old PS2s, the fat models. Those go out weirdly because the boot disc, even though they're designed to play now, mind you, they just go out in a sneaky way. Of course, this model can play the boot disc, but it still had that problem. You get you get error messages time to time again. Let's give you a quick caution. If you buy a used PS2, even if you have a perfect disc, it will scratch the disc drive will scratch. You can have scratches all over them, even though they're perfectly brand new. Just keep that in mind. The Xbox reliability is like I said, it's the clock battery and all the stuff in the Xbox over 20 years is olding, trying to get to the motherboard, cause some nasty stuff. And of course, like I said, this is my sister's old GameCube from 2002, and it still works. Never been clean. Like I said, the only thing that's not working is the clock. It's the clock rate. It's the battery clock. Clock battery is dead. That's basically what's going on. I don't know why that took that long for me to comprehend that, but yeah, you understand that. So yeah, let's be for real. If you want reliability, the GameCube is better. If you want technology advance, because the Xbox, I forgot to mention, no memory cards, got an 8, I don't know what hard drive this particular model had. It has a hard drive built in, no memory cards, even though this controller has, even though they put some of the controllers and they make them anyway, but you get what I'm saying. You don't need a memory card to save your games. Oh, you can download music, of course, play CDs like a PS2. The GameCube obviously cannot do that. You play CDs, download music. Of course, the PS2 you can't do that because you can play CD games. You guys know what I meant by that. So yeah, it's basically hardware and sound quality. The Xbox have this. So yeah, reliability. The GameCube has that. Like I said. Let me say this once before I forget. And I need to slow down and learn to form my sentence so I end up saying the same stuff over again. All right, reliability. The GameCube has that build quality because it's built like a tank, and hardware and sound quality. The Xbox had that, but if you want to be DVDs, built-in DVDs function was not built in, but you get what I'm saying. Ability to play DVDs, and of course, from sales standpoint, the PS2 kicked the Xbox GameCube's ass and throw them out the window. Don't give a fuck. Okay. Oh, I almost forgot to mention. Of course, you know, I said about the component cables. So yeah, these, like I said, if you buy these by the PS2 by itself, if you want to replace one, probably like $70 to $80. Same with the Xbox. And the GameCube, same thing. So that basically, if you just looking for them on eBay or something, you're probably around at least $100 if you got all the stuff you need. So yeah, you should be fun. These are easy to find because they're not that hard to not that high demand. You know, $90. That's not really that much because let's be for real. You got game systems. So it's like well, to be fair, you got games. If you without the games, without the whatever, forget everything got this said. So anyway, this is basically a competitive review of the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. I know it's not the best, and I know it's not the best quality, but I did what I do. So yeah, see you guys later.